This is Leaders Who Scale, and I'm Jeff Siegel. I've worked with thousands of companies over the years, and I'm fascinated by seeing how many of them grow and scale. Join me as we learn from the leaders of growing companies and share that knowledge. Leaders Who Scale is sponsored by Siegel Solutions, providing world-class accounting, advisory, and QuickBooks and Acumatica Cloud ERP services. Today's guest is a security specialist, an experienced leader and entrepreneur. He started out in his company as a part-time employee, and now he's worked his way up to 60 employees. He operates his business in 3 locations, the owner and operator of Signal 88 Security. And those locations are in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri. And I want to welcome Mike Lowry.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you coming on and sharing some of the things you do to scale your business.
Definitely look forward to talking about it.
Awesome. So before we get into some of these questions I have that I'd love to learn from you, can you just kind of talk about what Signal 88 Security does?
Yeah, so we are a security franchise, soon to be actually Signal. We're in the middle of a rebrand actually right now, so soon we'll be Signal Security. But we're a security franchise, and when I say security, not what most people think of as far as cameras and alarms. We do physical security, so security guards, whether that be roving patrol services, on-site security. Our clientele range anywhere from apartment communities, HOAs, commercial shopping centers, healthcare facilities, education facilities, event venues, anywhere you think that there's a actual in-person security presence needed.
Okay. Are they actually armed security in some
We have
case?
Armed and unarmed. So
okay.
It all depends on the job type and then the level of certification of the officer. Because each state we operate in has different licensing requirements and everything. Everything's regulated by the states in each state.
All right. Well, that's awesome. So I know you've gone, like I mentioned earlier, from part-time, now you've got 60 employees, and I assume contractors at times, depending on different venues or not.
Yeah, we use a lot of law enforcement contractors for certain contracts. Okay. That'd be the only contractors. The rest of that would be regular employees.
Okay. So I always like to ask right away, so what is the most challenging aspect of scaling your business?
For us, I mean, I think it's a lot of people this day and age, especially as people. Just comes down to having the right people, especially in our industry. It's so flooded with people that actually work in the industry, but we set a higher standard that just because you have a license, have experience, doesn't mean you're the right person. You have to meet the core values and everything. So I think it's a combination of having the right people, and that starts with the entry-level employee all the way up to the top management, and then also it gets more important as we get higher up in the rank structure, having those managers be the right people, and not just the right people, but be in the right seats, and also having, I'd say, the right processes. We've evolved those over the years, all our process and procedures, and we changed them as we've learned and grown over the years to adapt and do things now that 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, we wish we would have had in our minds to do. Now we kick ourselves and wonder why we're doing that.
Right.
Makes so much sense. I don't know why we didn't do that 3 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Have you seen a big shift in like processes and systems and people as you've grown, even from a part-time employee?
Not just us, but I mean, the great thing about being part of a franchise is we have that huge support system. So our processes from our home office in Omaha, Nebraska, which is like our franchise group, or kind of a corporate office in a way, they've grown their process, and we get so much support from them. So as they've evolved, they've grown their processes and procedures, which has made us grow ours, and it's been a great thing to grow through. Like I said, especially being in this not just industry, but with this company for so long, I've got to see it from almost ground zero.
Mm-hmm. How many? I know you have the 3 locations. How many other franchises are out? I shouldn't say locations.
So I believe right now we're always changing. We're always growing. I know we're in 42 states, 4 countries, I believe. Wow. They just signed Germany as a master franchise. And I believe right now operating, because we have a bunch more that are still getting licensing and always growing. The last number I saw, I believe, was 170 something actual open locations that are actually operating.
Wow, that's a good size. What's a typical, is a typical owner operator to when
Yeah, a
these
lot of people
start?
are, most people are involved in the business. You got a couple of people, I think there's a couple of locations that will kind of be behind the scenes a little more, but most people are heavily involved in the business. The typical business for Signal you start for your first location, if you're going to have multiple, even your first location, I mean, you're starting in the field, running patrols at night, doing sales in
Mhm.
the daytime until you
Okay.
get enough revenue to come in. So a lot of long days in the early days.
Yeah, so talk about that. So there's always this concept, the buzzword you always hear is, work on your business versus in your business. What would where are you today? And talk about that transition, what you went through with as you're growing this business. Because like you mentioned, you were rowing, security at night and long days. And so I'm not just talk about kind of that whole process and what you're doing today.
Yeah, I mean, so kind of though, when I look at work in your business or work on your business, it depends which location really we're at really. So if
Mhm.
I look at my Tulsa market, which is my longest market, which is where I actually started as a part-time employee at, definitely working on the business. We have a lot more support. Way we're a lot larger here. But then my newest location that we have Kansas City, Missouri, which I have partners there. Luckily, that helps out a lot. But that's still more in the business because I'm more in the trenches on that one.
Okay.
So it, I have that unique thing where I'm kind of doing both depending on what's location.
Right.
So
I
I'm
mean,
still doing. I'm more involved in like the newer locations, but then as it grows, it's also it's been around so much long that we have exec director, we have an ops coordinator, we have plenty of supervisors. So it's
yeah.
not me doing as much daily stuff, and we have admin assistants, things of that nature. Versus our newest one, Kansas City, that we opened up in August with, like I said, luckily on that one I have partners, so it's not as much in it, but it's more in the field kind of stuff. Not really the patrols because it's in another state, but even just the daily stuff that we do is stuff that I don't do in my other business. I've been around for a while, so it's
Okay.
definitely a weird. I have that unique weird mixture of doing both.
Yeah. I mean, I assume you love doing both, right? I mean, is there a time where you're like, I just
Depends
want
what
to go
day
out
it is.
in the field?
Yeah, it depends what day it is. I enjoy more on the business every day.
Yeah.
That's a lot more enjoyable. It's a little less stressful. So
Right. What's the management team like, that works with you? Is there managers at each obviously location? Do you guys meet or, regularly? Do you plan annually and quarterly? What's that look like as you try to
yeah,
scale?
so once again, that goes back to each location set up a little differently. Tulsa being our largest, we have exec director, we have an ops coordinator here, and then we have branch supervisors for throughout the company on different divisions. And then on our Little Rock side, we have a director of operations, and we have a partner relations manager that handles the client side, and then we have an ops coordinator in our Kansas City one. But we follow the traction model. So we
Okay.
have level 10 meetings every Monday. We have our scorecards we go over. We have our quarterly goals we set. But we track that every month or
Mhm.
every week, down to every Monday. We have this call same time no matter what's going on. We have those
Yeah.
calls, and just really allows us to connect. And I think the best thing about that is it allows us to track things through the week where we're not constantly just almost micromanaging, talking to each other about every little small thing. It allows us just to get on there and block out the rest of the world for an hour and just kind of
Yeah.
nail down everything and hyper focus on our goals too for the year. And then we do quarterly, level 10 quarterly deals. And then every year we also have our convention with our franchise group, and I take the supervisors all there. That whole team also goes to convention. And then this year we started going a day early to spend extra time together outside of the convention material that we were learning and working together. But we spend a whole day together there extra just to kind of plan our year out
Mhm.
and set our
Yeah.
goal.
No, you mentioned the traction method because we do the same here. And tell me, did you start with the traction method when and actually some people may not have heard of the traction method, the book Traction, and they also call it EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. Is that something you started with when you started building your business, or
No, we actually just started implementing the level 10 meetings probably about 6 months ago. So it's new.
Okay, yeah,
I was introduced to it by our CEO of our franchise group. He kind of brought it in. We attend a leadership call with him. Once it used to be our book club where we go over a book, and now we call it notable and quotables. But it used to be called book club, but every week we'd all be reading a book, and every week we get on a call together throughout the whole country. Everybody from all over the country,
wow,
from owners to operations manager, everybody was invited, along with the CEO of Signal 88. And we just get on and talk. And he introduced traction to me, so I started researching more. And then as we started getting more locations, especially once I got Kansas City, I was getting pulled in so many different directions that I really needed a way to just kind of hammer it down to where I wasn't sitting there calling someone every week asking about, oh, hey, where are we on this? Where are we on that? We needed to
sure,
really lock it down and organize it a lot better. So we implemented about 6 months ago. We don't have an implementer at all yet. We've looked at a couple, and we look at having someone come in, but I was one of those things like, we're going to probably screw this up for the first 2 or 3 months. So let's screw it up while it's not cost us money.
right.
We
There's
use a
some,
system. We use
yeah,
a program called 90.io though.
yeah. We use the same program.
Okay.
It
Yeah, it's a great program. It's very low cost actually.
low cost, and it kind of forces you to stay on the scheduled agenda, which
Yep.
is set up for you in advance. Yeah, exactly. We use it here, and I actually, one of the best parts of it, besides keeping you on track, is what I found personally was helping us create our core values, and we use that as we hired people. And I'd love to hear more about your staffing. But secondly, that accountability chart, and then ranking how our employees fall within our core values. Because I'm not sure if you've read it. Well, yeah, I'm sure you have in Traction, but if an employee doesn't hit a couple of those core values, then they're toxic. They almost, you either have to get them to that point, or they're not right for the organization. So that's kind of, for me, that's helped me a lot. Just that part of Traction or EOS. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, we had this. It was brought on around the same time that we were looking at Traction through our franchise group when they were looking at it. But we took our core values and we kind of put that in with the Traction model, and we rank our officers and all the way up to managers. We list all our core values, and we're doing their evals, especially we go, do they get it? Do they want it?
They have capacity.
Yeah, capacity. Do they have capacity? Do they understand it? Do they want it actually? And we start ranking them either negative, positive, or it's neutral. And
Yeah.
if there's a negative any of those core values, then we either need to fix that or they need to find employment somewhere else, really. But first, we need to look and seeing, hey, what can we do on our side to get them to understand that? Did we do something wrong, or did we not explain it right?
Yeah. No, it's I think it's a great system. And I think from what I'm learning, talking to leaders, they all have their systems. That's a big one. There's another one that I've read about, heard the speaker who talked about it, was predictable success. And I'm not sure if you've heard of that one, but
I'm not.
What's interesting about that, and it's kind of they overlap, but they two different ways to look at your business. One is really how do you run your business? How do you manage it? Help you kind of strategize. Predictable success talks about the evolution of a business, and when do you need to bring in certain types of people at what point in it, they start out with, you've got like an early stage, and you're almost trying to get customers, you're trying to grow, and usually it's that owner operator who's kind of doing everything. They're just kind of like, hey, I got to get money in the door. And then you move up to this stage where where now you've got customers, you've got money coming in, you bring along another person who is kind of like, they call it the operator. Like, hey, what do you need done, owner? I'm going to just go and do it for you. So now you start growing, but at some point, they call it whitewater. As you move up this scale, systems break down. People are, not doing all the same thing. They're pretty much probably lacking systems. And that's what they call the whitewater period, where you're growing, but you just have no control. And it's rough. So you have to bring in, and be curious whether you have this type of a person, what they call the processor. Hey, I'm going to make sure we've got systems and contracts, and you can't go out and, in your business start security unless we have the contract and the first payment or something. And interesting concept, because the processor, the operator, and the owner, the visionary, don't always get along, right? The visionary is like, hey, I'm just going to grow and open up 3 more franchises, and the process is going, oh, time out. We don't have the people and the systems, and then they stop butting heads. So
I mean, that's kind of like us. Well, in one, we kind of have that system where our franchise system, the whole, our franchise group breaks it down into phases. So like phase 1 business model, that's up until a certain amount of revenue, you are the owner operator. That's where you're in the truck. And then when you get to like phase 2, that's when now you're replacing yourself. You're no longer in the truck anymore. By the end of phase 2, you're actually replacing your income. It's income replacement, that like, hey, whatever job you had, or this is now replacing it. Phase 3 is that's when you start, and in each one of those phases, that's when we look at bringing in different management levels. Okay, this is where you need an ops coordinator, which is kind of like our entry level overhead management position. And in different phases, like, okay, now this phase, this is where you have a director of operations, and in this phase you have an executive director. So that's the great thing about being part of the franchise model. We're part of it is they did a lot of groundwork for us. We had a lot of blueprints laid out for us, but all those weren't there. Like I said, 10 years ago when I started with Sing Lake, because I started as a part-time officer at the time owner of the Tulsa at that time. And at the time, Sing Lake as a franchise has only been around for 2.5 years.
Okay.
So we had no processes, no procedures. I mean, very little stuff. Even 3 years into me being with the model, I mean, it looked like I was growing so fast. I actually was tapped by their franchise group to go help launch another new franchise, which this day and age, they have whole teams for that. We've had those phases and everything. And then we necessarily don't have, the processor and stuff like that, but we're in the same problems, where we have a sales guy who's out making sales. He wants to grow because his commission's based on that. But the operations team, they're like, oh wait, we need people for this, or if the contract ends for whatever reason, we have people now, the operations people are telling the sales people, you need to get more business because I have these people and I don't want to lay them off. So we have those 2 groups that are usually going head to head and running into each other sometimes.
So there's actually with predictable success, they have the visionary, the operator, the processor, but there's like a 4th role called the synergist. And it's like, how do I make all this kind of work? Because there's these people are not getting along or butting heads, or we're selling, but we don't have the staff, and how do we get everything under control from all the personality types and all the roles. And they call that predictable success. It's kind of like at a curve. The beginning is infancy, and the right at the top is predictable success. The problem that a lot of companies have, a lot of big companies, probably not companies like us, is the processor takes over. Like the visionary is like, hey, you know what, I'm done. I can't, there's too many controls. I can't even, do what I need to do. And they leave. And then the company goes into what they call like a death spiral, because the processes are all controlling the company. There's no vision anymore. There's, maybe they're systemized to the max, great, but there's no innovation anymore, and the trick is to stay in that predictable success phase. Sometimes you slip backwards, systems get out of control, you're growing, and fix it and come back in. And I notice company, and actually a lot of it's, I think, natural, kind of a natural thing that happens to companies is if they're growing correctly. Like you said, you have managers and different levels of management. It's not like you knew like, hey, at this point, well, actually part of it was at this point I move out of the truck and someone moves in. So it's a kind of a process. So,
but we didn't have those, like I said, 3-4 years ago, we had it, but we didn't have it defined. lot of learning curves to define, okay, when's the point that we bring in, because as you know, it's a big decision when you get to bring in a new overhead position. I mean, because if you're in business at the end of the day, unless you're in a nonprofit, you're going to make a profit, and you have to look at it every time you bring an overhead, hey, that's eating your profit. But if it can 10x that, or even 5x your investment into that person, it's even better, or free up your time. I learned a long time, or not a long time ago, really past 3 years, I really started understanding and focusing on what is my time worth, because before I used to always hear that, I'm like, man, that sounds so egotistic, like my time's worth more than this, I don't need to focus on this. But when you really look, it's like, okay, what's my time worth? Because if I'm spending my time on these little things, and instead I could spend my time on something that can skyrocket us even bigger, then it's worth this investment. So we used to spend so much extra time looking at, okay, should we bring someone else in? Should we have this position? What should we pay this position? But now, as the years with Stimulate, as we've grown, they've assisted us in this process, because even though we're all in different markets, and that's a little bit different, similarly across the board, we're in the same industry, we have the same problems, we're dealing with the same issues. So it was easy for them to put together those phases of growth and say, okay, when you're here, you should look at doing these positions. When you have X amount of revenue in the dedicated security side, you should have a site supervisor. If you have this amount, you should have a coordinator. And then just grow from there. And that's really helped evolve us over the past couple of years, really, and really helped us to get where we are now, especially me owning multiple locations. Because our old system 3 years ago, I would not be owning more than 3 locations, or 2 locations even.
Yeah, I was thinking, as you were just talking, I was thinking about that. Like, how has your own growth as a leader gone, since you first started? I mean, if somebody told you, like, 5 or 6 years ago, here's where you'd be in 5 years, would you actually believe it? And just curious how your own progression was.
I mean, definitely in 5 or 6 years. I mean, I started in Signal about 2011 as a part-time officer, and it was really it was a part-time job after I got out of the military. After I got active duty side of the military, to just go to when I was going to school, to eventually go in criminal justice and get into law enforcement. And I slowly started growing a little bit with Signal A as a part-time job, and I actually quit at one time. And they asked me not to quit. They're like, what would it take? And I threw a number out there, and they made me a supervisor. And I was like, oh, I'll see where this goes. But even then, I didn't have any intention of growing it. But then I saw just the company growth, so I started growing with that. But then as that grew, I became more of the leader, because I had leadership in the past, but it came from the military, which is a 180 from business. I mean, a lot of things carry over, but I think it's more that work ethic and that problem solving parts carry over. But the parts that didn't carry over were like the visionary parts and the reading books. I never thought I'd read so many books. So actually, behind me, that bookshelf is very full of everything from John Maxwell to Jocko Williams to traction books to just everything on leadership and time management. But I mean, even 5 years ago, about 5 years ago, I was in the director of operations position for our Tulsa market. And I still didn't see where we're at now. And even 3 years ago, when I partnered with the current owner of Tulsa Signal at the time, and we partnered together and opened up Signal in Little Rock, which is what I would eventually buy all of that, and Tulsa. I didn't even then when we opened that, when I first got my first taste of ownership, I didn't even see owning all, these 3 locations now. And then as of this week, like we talked about before we started the call, we're in the middle of this week right now of signing for our 4th location. That was me. Yeah. So I have 3 locations, 100% myself, and then I have 1 location, Kansas City, where I have partners on that. But yeah, even 3 years ago, I wouldn't see that there. It's definitely makes you wake up and evolve as a leader. Like I said, I had plenty of leadership training and experience in the military, but it's only a handful of it does carry over, but nowhere near the stuff I've grown on. And just even my trips to my markets are different now. Now I listen to podcasts on the way because I'm always wanting to learn, and grow, and just I feel I need to evolve every day. And I feel as a leader, you really need to do that for your people, because if you're not evolving and the business is evolving, it's going to pass you. And then when they look to you for that visionary and that inspiration of where to go, you're going to be behind the curveball,
Yeah.
And I think it's also on us as leaders to not just evolve ourselves, to evolve our team too. So I always look for our team to grow and how we can grow them. Our location in Fayetteville is actually close to our location in Little Rock. It's only a couple hours away. And we're working a deal with our operations director down there and our sales manager down there, where we're going to give them a 5% each of the company as an owner operator. It's a limited owner operating model where we give them 5% of the company to help run it. And that's another thing we're looking to do within our company to help grow our leaders,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the more you can do that, the more you can continue to work on the business and not in it. So.
Oh yeah. How do you promote with multiple locations, and congratulations on the fourth one here that you're opening? How do you promote that culture that you're looking for, across the board?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with start with our leaders, and that goes down to those weekly calls, what we're looking for, and those week the convention. When we go to a convention, we push heavy on our culture at our convention, and
Mm-hmm.
and our core values. We push heavy on that. So I think it starts from top down. For really making sure the people that are doing the hiring for each of our locations are emphasizing our culture that we want and our core values, because they're not going to hire the right people. And then once you have a bad hire, and we try to get in a stage, it gets hard sometimes, but we try to get in a stage where we follow a model of hire slow, fire fast. So take your time hiring people until we get the right person. But if there's an issue with someone and we know there's no, solution to it, like we've done everything we can for that person, then we have to ways if we have to, because it's not ever personal. It's, maybe you're just not the right fit for the company.
Yeah.
And we've had to do that with some upper level people, management positions over the years, that they're great people, but just as the company evolved, they didn't evolve with the company.
Yeah.
And so they were almost they started out in the right seat, but the seat got a little bigger. So
Yeah.
it didn't fit in the seat no more. So.
Well, how difficult is finding in today's day and age? Everybody has staff shortages. So I'm curious in your field. Obviously, it's security, and there's going to be some events where they have to be armed. Like, I'm just curious how difficult it is even finding good staff.
Yeah. So, I mean, we face the struggles like everybody else with just staffing in general. That's our first hurdle we have to get over. And then the second hurdle we have to face is our industry as a whole is, especially in Tulsa, not as much Little Rock, and same thing in Kansas City, but our market as a whole is flooded with companies. So then we're competing with, so many other companies for the staffing. And then the third hurdle we have to face is it's so flooded with people in those markets that it's got a lot of people that aren't to the standard we want. The license it's for industry is unfortunately scary, easy to get. So it's got a lot of people we don't want, but a lot of companies, fine, they can hire them. But so we get a lot of people that will apply for us, got years of experience, have the correct license, but then we look at it or we bring them in like, this is not the right fit. You're not going to be your core values. You're just here for a job, or you're here to be Wild West. So, I mean, it just focuses on, we try to hire based on our core values and character, right? Every once in a while, I'll still jump in and do an interview for our executive, for our director or our management team. It's very rare. I did one yesterday, actually. And I teach our managers the same thing, but even when I do interviews or I teach them the same thing, is we tell people like, hey, your experience is great, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for character. We're looking for work ethic, team players, because we can teach security over time if you have those. I can't teach someone to have good character. I can't teach someone to have work ethic. But I would say 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we were trying to hire based on, oh, you have experience, you have a license, oh, you're probably gonna be perfect. And then we realized that was not what it meant.
Yeah.
Because they look good on paper doesn't mean anything. We needed to hire based on character of the person, then we can grow everything else.
Do you go through is there a big transition in, I don't know about, probably in the industry there might be.
Industry as a whole, we have a good retention rate. When we get the right people, we lock them in. A lot of people use us as a stepping stone to go in law enforcement, so we'll lose a lot of people to go in law enforcement, but it's not like short-term run. We track our numbers as one of our KPIs, so we have a lot of KPIs we follow. and one of our is retention. And I know our last month number just came out. I believe in Tulsa, for example, and Little Rock too. I don't know what Kansas City was. I haven't looked at that one yet. But I think our retention was around like 90%.
Wow.
So not too bad. I mean, it's just rotating a couple positions out here and there, when we get people that we like, they stay until they move. I mean, we have in Tulsa, like I said, we've been around like 11 years. We have one supervisor's been with 8 years. We have another one's been about 7 years. We have a couple people at 3 years, 4 years. Our director of operations that's in Little Rock, he actually started in Tulsa. He was with us for about 8 years, and then we needed an operation manager down there, so we promoted him down there, and he moved to Little Rock for us. So he's been with the company as a whole for about 9 years now. So when we get the right people, they stay. And then even the ones that don't stay, we look, if we can get someone for up to a year, then that's good with us, just because the retention on the market's different. People want to change stuff, or they finish their degree, because we get a lot of people that might be going to school, stuff like that, or like I said, are wanting to go to law enforcement. So we've had a lot of people transition to law enforcement. But
what you had earlier, you mentioned all the books you read or have read. Do you have a favorite? Is there something that like you said, hey,
not necessarily one that pops out as my true favorite, but I'm a sucker for anything John Maxwell. Right now I'm actually rereading Laws of Leadership.
Oh, okay.
I've read it like 3 times.
Yeah.
So and then I have another one I'm reading called Rainmaker. It's based on sales.
Okay.
About sales and everything. I'm usually between 2 books at once.
You talk about sales, even is that what's the industry like as far as sales? Is it tough to get new customers, or is it
it's not
a lot of competition?
A lot of competition. That's really what it is. I mean, in our industry, there's a lot of people. So the apartment industry for us is what we call the low-hanging fruit. It's probably the easiest to get for us because most apartment communities have a security patrol service, something like that. Sure. So really on those is just getting in front of you. So the need's already there for those clientele. So then it's just getting in front of them and explaining why you're better than who they have, what we can do better. And we're not going to be the cheapest. We're not the most expensive. We're not the cheapest. So we don't really focus on the price. We focus on what we can do to add value to them. And one thing that helps us with sales and growth, I believe, is we don't lock anybody into contracts.
Okay.
Everything's ongoing. You can get out anytime with 30 days notice, because we tell them we don't want you to work with us just because you're in a contract. We want to earn your business every month. Mm-hmm. So, but it's always competition out there every year, and then especially when COVID hit, that hit a lot of the apartment communities pretty hard, and that was their budget. It didn't hit our industry at first hard because we were getting a lot of COVID enforcement stuff going on, mm-hmm. but it hit the apartment industry where they had to cut a lot of budgets. We worked with some retails, and that forced a lot of things down due to shutdowns and stuff. But as a whole, sales aren't too hard to get. It's just getting out there and showing why we're better than the competition.
Yeah. Did you see an increase with, this whole nationwide, defund the police and, what's been happening and just crime in general? Without getting political, because I'm not, just in general. Are you seeing an increase in more?
Not necessarily an increase on that, because a lot of the places like Oklahoma and even Arkansas, they don't push for it as much. Oklahoma is really pro law enforcement, so they're not really a big push for the defund act here, but mainly just on the crime and just I think it goes back to not even the defund part that people are trying to do, but just the environment that law enforcement again, they're so short-staffed. That has caused us to have an increase, because since they're so short-staffed, their call responses are so much slower these days because they're so short-staffed. And we're able to provide a quick call response to things. I mean, we still always advise people, if the actual emergency, call the police first, but just seem to, suspicious activity calls, things like that, where our call response is so much faster than the police right now.
Okay.
We average a 9-minute call response.
Wow.
For an average police is 25 minutes for calls we go on. So
amazing. You talked about some of the books you're reading. One of the ones when we talked about sales a second ago was have you read The Challenger Sale?
I've not.
So that's an interesting read. It talks about the different types of sales people and the ones that are the most effective, and there's like four different types, and the one that's the least effective. And it's interesting because I thought it was going to be the reverse, but the least effective salesperson is the one that's the rapport builder, the one that'll sit in on the phone and just build a rapport with a prospect, or you're meeting with them and you're kind of building this, experience sharing, and oh, do you do this, I do that, this is great, yes, and this is wonderful, and they leave thinking, oh, this person is going to buy from me. um he's that person's the least effective. The most effective one is what they call the challenger, the salesperson who, yeah, they're going to build up probably some rapport because that's how they, people buy an emotion many times, but they're going to challenge the prospect with, some real aha moments. Like, have you really thought of this, or this is what your competitors are doing that you're not doing, and they're not afraid to do it, not in an arrogant way, but just really challenge their prospect, and they're like the most effective salespeople.
Yeah,
So
and that's kind of how we do ours.
yeah,
We've always trying to make sure we walk that fine line where we don't feel like we're bashing our competitors, but we
yeah,
go in there, we just kind of get them to talk about what are they doing, and then when we hear what they do, it almost comes out naturally of obviously we're there bidding for a reason. We have the medium for a reason. There's something going on for a reason, that they're opening up that job for a bid, or they're at least interested in talking to you. So there's something behind the scenes usually. And usually when we're talking to them, we're doing that. They'll start by opening up of kind of what's wrong. And then what we do, we just kind of talk about how we do that differently.
yeah,
By saying, oh, you have paper reports? Well, we have digital reports. And so they have no, doesn't sound like your client has, or current provider has any accountability tools for you.
mhm.
So, and so, yeah, we start challenging their methods, but we, like you said, we don't do that. We like that fine line to where we don't want to come across that we are bashing or too arrogant.
Right,
But we're pointing out what we do better,
yeah,
versus
yeah,
just
I
trying
think,
to be your buddy. Because we're in the apartment industry, we do a lot of community events, and it's all great. I know a lot of people that I'm on good terms with, and like the apartment community, especially, that we just don't do business together because at the
mm,
end of the day, that just being friends with them, or you know, doing a lot of community events together and having a relationship wasn't the deal closer.
sure. Here's a question I got for you, and actually, I haven't asked anyone else this question, but I just thought about it.
Love
If
being
you
a guinea pig.
you're the guinea pig, so you're growing your business, you're scaling, you've got three locations, you're starting the fourth now. If somebody hypothetically walked in and said, Mike, here's $1 million, I want you to do something with this to grow your business, what would come to mind? Like, what would you do? Really, like, what would the vision be? What would you
I
say?
mean, honestly, there's not much that we can do just with a huge capital influx into our business. It's not like we don't have products. We don't have products, so there's not really we do. We can buy more vehicles, but we need more business for that. So
Sure.
outside of investing in marketing, so I'll say something like that, I would invest in more territories and more locations and
Okay.
grow as a whole bigger, not just the one location, but invest in more territories within Signal 8 and just grow business, different businesses.
Yeah.
We're looking at, I've done a little bit of everything with Signal 8. We've started I've taken over and we started from scratch. Our Kansas City market, we've acquired that one from previous owners and done a lot of repairs on it and fixed it. So now my next thing is also looking at just getting into diversifying and getting into different businesses.
Yeah, that was going to be, love to talk about where you've come from, but before that, what's the future hold for, just kind of like you said, your business, and where you think where you want to go with this whole thing?
Yeah. So we're on a trajectory path. We have about each market so far. We have about I think our last number we looked at was about a 20% growth each year. So in
That's
revenue,
awesome.
we're going the right direction every year.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I just want to continue to grow that, and really, I mean, if we didn't grow one more penny right now, we'd be financially sound. I mean, we're in a perfect place in life in each location. Kansas City one could grow a little more, but even if it didn't, it could pay some bills, and
Hmm.
everything. So, but I would really love to continue growing them more, just to build our team and let them
Okay.
grow. Just because of the experience I got to do with that, of growing and starting from just a part-time employee to where I am now. I just want to continue growing them to, so I mean, because the more I know we grow, the more opportunities we have, the more higher end positions that we have. So that way we have these people that are busting their tails for us in the field right now. I want to be able to have more opportunities for them, because right now where we're at, we're limited to, unless we grow more, there's no more, or someone leaves, we have no more high up positions. So
Sure.
I definitely love to see each location double in size in the next 5 to 10 years.
Hmm.
So
And you mentioned diversification. Is there some other industries or?
yeah, I always look for, especially this day and age, recession-proof businesses. That's what I
Okay.
love about security, because security is definitely a recession-proof business. Because when things are good, people need security to protect it. When things are bad, people need security to protect it.
Right.
So that's why COVID didn't. I mean, we had a little dip in because of COVID, because of a couple of stores shutting down, but then we had some increases too at some points COVID because of mass enforcement. So it didn't really affect us overall. We didn't have to lay anybody off. No one lost hours. We were able to work as business, outside. It's a lot of hand sanitizer and some masks. We're able to work as normal. But so I always look for diversifying business. I love the franchise model if it's the
Okay.
right franchise model, because why reinvent the wheel? If I'm not going to invent a product or come up with something new, there's no reason to me that I'm going to go out and just reinvent something completely different.
Yeah. But
So that's why I love the franchise model for that aspect of it when it comes to business. So I'm definitely looking at one called J Dog Junk Removal. It's a great one. It's a veteran-owned one. They've had extreme growth over the years. I think they're over 200 and something locations.
wow.
And you have to either be a veteran or a veteran family member to be a part of it. It's a low cost buy-in. The royalties are pretty low. They max out at, actually, they cap out at a certain amount. It's not a percentage like a lot of franchises are.
Hmm.
They're just on the Discovery Channel. I also look at anyone that I can bounce off business off other current locations that we're working.
Okay.
So like we're big in the apartment community and commercial business. So if I have a junk removal company, I can work with a lot of the same clientels and kind of use
Oh,
their relationships and everything, because they're going to have clean outs and stuff like that.
yeah, you can create some stickiness with those clients. Yeah. So, just tell me about yourself. You mentioned military earlier. Just kind of where are you from, the Oklahoma area? Like, where'd you go to school? Just curious
Yep.
where your
So,
background a little bit.
yeah, I was born in Oklahoma. I say born in Oklahoma and raised it overseas, because I spent a lot of years overseas with the military. So I always say born in Oklahoma and raised overseas, because it's where I really learned about life. But yeah, born in Oklahoma. I graduated from local high school here at 17. I actually signed up for the Army. Went in between my junior year and senior year, did all my training. And then about 3 weeks, I think it was, after I graduated high school, went my first deployment. So I didn't get very much of a break after high school.
Wow.
And it's from 2004 to about 2009. I was in, or almost 2010, really, in between deployments all over between Iraq, Afghanistan. Ended the active side as an instructor, a deployment, what's called an OCT,
Okay.
reserve controller trainer, which is basically a deployment instructor. So we would prepare people to go overseas and through different training.
Wow.
And then got out, was put in the reserves. Thought I was going to be home for a little bit, and then they sent me back down to Fort Benning in Georgia to be a training NCO on a stateside mobilization. So I was like, oh, so much for home. But luckily, that's where I met my wife. Actually, she was in the reserves too at the time, so I got to meet her there. So
Awesome.
and then came home in 2000, early 2011 fully. I was still in the reserve up until 2018 actually, and I started going to school, and that's when I started with 8, and been great ever since. And then, like I said, I got out of the military in 2018 just due to some previous injuries from overseas.
Well, no, well, thank you for your service. It's an amazing journey that you've been on. Like, almost half of your life has been in the military, it seems.
Yeah.
Um, and just kind of just what kind of passions do you have? What do you do outside of work?
Look for more work now.
Don't we all,
No,
entrepreneurs?
yeah, honestly, I'm always looking for something to outside of work when I'm not working. Right now I'm having the mobile location open. Another one, we're always looking to grow and do more, so
Sure.
I'm a little bit too involved in the business, or too involved on the business. So it's not really in the business, but I'm so involved on the business now.
Yeah.
But outside that, I mean, just love to. I'm not one of those guys who I like to travel once in a while, but really spend time with family. My son's heavily involved in martial arts and everything.
Ah,
So I spend a lot of time helping him train and taking him to training. He wants to be a fighter. He's got his first fight this weekend. So
well, how old's your son?
he's 18. So he's got his first amateur kickboxing fight later this
Wow.
weekend. So actually, one of them just called me, helping him do some weight cutting today. And then so I need him getting big, so then I have free advertisement, for my businesses. He gets all over TV. I can just slap all my businesses all over for
There
free
you
on
go.
so he's an investment. So all the money I spend on his training, it's like a business investment. So,
Well, good luck. You got to get him in the business too at some point, right?
yeah, he's actually worked a couple posts. He's in school still, but he's worked a couple overnight posts for us. So, and then my other, so he's my stepson, and I have two stepsons, and my other stepson actually works in the business. He's one of our supervisors.
Okay. Wow.
But I made him go through the ringer. I mean, he started as a regular officer. He had to be interviewed by our other team and our supervisors. When he became supervisor, he had to be interviewed just for that. We
Wow.
don't believe in giving any kind of special treatment just because who you are, who you know, kind of deal. You got to go through the same ringer and be held to the same standard. So he's been with us he just hit 3 years.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
it's become a family business, and I think he has aspirations. And then now his wife, who's pregnant, she is our administration assistant. So we're slowly building it into the family.
Wow. Is your wife involved in the business too?
My wife is not. No.
Okay. All right.
My wife
You probably want to keep it separate.
Yeah. So I tried to get her to, when she was not working for a while because just taking a break from everything, doing some health stuff, and tried to get her to come do a report. It's like, I see you now. I'm like, geez. But yeah, I try to keep that part separate, because I'm one of those people. It's that cliche, the work-life balance, but
yeah,
and I try to tell my employees too. Our managers, everybody's like, man, when you go home, just unplugged. I mean, yeah, your phone might ring, you might have to deal with something, but if it's not ringing, just unplug and work. Try to focus on home. Don't bring any work problems home. And then same thing though, when you're work, I expect, hey, you have some personal stuff go home, just try to unplug and don't bring that to work. Keep those separate. So.
it is
Probably the worst one with that though, because when I'm at home, I'm always popping up my laptop, looking at our KPIs, wondering how we can do something different or better, or trying to do some research, something. My wife's always like, "You're always on your laptop." I'm like, "Gotta grow." So I need to take my own advice on that one. It's like kind of do as I say, not as I do, kind of deal. So,
it's kind of like I hate to say it's like a disease for entrepreneurs. They're just constantly plugged in.
Always wanting. My mind's always a hamster wheel. It's always want to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's a blessing, and it's a blessing, but I believe it's also a curse. You have to find that happy medium as an entrepreneur, or else you just go crazy. If all you think is, work. I think the last time I finally got to unplug, I truly unplugged. I took my son to Vegas to watch watch some fights, UFC fights, and I truly unplugged. I didn't take my laptop. It was the first trip I ever went that I didn't take my laptop. I mean, if I go to see my family for Christmas, I take my laptop and do stuff. It was the first trip I didn't take my laptop. I told everybody, it's like, unless someone's injured or hurt, don't call me. It was the first time. It was weird at first because like my phone's not ringing. It's weird, but it felt good up there. And I think you have to do that, even if you don't do it all the time. I think you have to do that as an owner, as a business. So even as a manager of the company, you have to unplug, and you have to allow your employees to unplug too.
Yeah, you do.
Also, they're going to get burnout. Burnout's just not an employee thing. It's a business owner thing too, I believe.
Yeah. No, it's true. I for years would open up my email even on my phone, and now on weekends. But I've same thing tried. I don't open my laptop up anymore on a weekend, and I most of the time will not look at my email on a weekend either. Um, just because I don't, it could wait till Monday,
Yeah.
unless, like you said, somebody's hurt or injured.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate part of business. It can happen a lot easier to our people.
Yeah, that is
So
true. That is
that's why I
true.
can't. That's one thing I can never do is never just turn my phone completely off.
Yeah, I mean, they could call, exactly, let them call, but yeah. So, yeah, because as a in my business, we do outsourced accounting and QuickBooks consulting, and you know, a client could email you on a weekend, and first of all, if you reply, then they know you're available.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, I can
That
email.
starts a chain reaction.
Yeah. But secondly, it could ruin your weekend. Let's say it's an email where somebody's not happy, or it's something, something that could wait till Monday, but you look at it on a weekend, could ruin your weekend, in your
And I think,
relationships, right? Because now you're upset, and your significant other is like, what's going on? And it's just it's not a good thing. So
yeah, I mean, I also believe it's too. It's not just a weekend too. It's something I learned a long time ago from someone that kind of the old owner who helped mentor me through this business a lot, was to not even the weekday, not always respond right away.
yeah.
My mindset, I always want to respond right away if a client emails you, because like, oh, I want to take care of them, I want to be the best, But it's like, if you do that, they start to expect it. And then all of a sudden when you
Right.
don't, because you're tied up with something else, because you're growing, you don't respond right away, and then they get upset. So I used to always be the person who would respond right away, or always have my email pulled up with notifications on and ready to go. But now when I just check my email throughout the day, random times, and now instead of just checking, I used to literally have it on the screen, just pulled up.
Right.
If someone respond, I would respond right away. And people love that, but they expect it. If you don't do that all of a sudden, then you're changing what they expected.
Right. Yeah. And what happens, I think, is the email ends up controlling your day, because they just pop in, there's issues, there's someone that needs you to reply back. And next thing you know, half a day's gone by, and all you did is answer emails, and it becomes the control. Yeah, it's better, like you said. And I do the same thing. It's hard for me not to answer emails too quick, but I've heard from other people, hey, just block out certain times of the day that you may look at emails, and just shut it off other times. But it is difficult.
And I haven't done that part yet, but one thing I've gotten better over the years is really living by my calendar, And even I tell my team, like, hey, you can pop in my office, because my Tulsa team is spoiled because they get me more because I live here. They have access to me more because it's the only office I actually have an office at. The other ones I don't have offices at, since I don't live there. But even then, I tell them, and I've gotten better over the year of this, is if you really need to talk to me about something really important, then put it on do a calendar request and put it on my calendar. If not, you can pop in and say hi. Besides that, it's not get distracted, because I want to be able to give them the full attention, And same thing, email. If I want to respond to an email, I want to get that full attention. And I've heard that blocking the calendar off thing. I haven't done it yet for email checks. I just kind of randomly do it,
Yeah.
But I do block my calendar off for pretty much everything. I mean, if I get my haircut today, so I have it blocked off for that, just because I'm going to be gone for that haircut time. I might be able to respond to my team, and I don't want them to think ignoring them or anything like that. But I want to be able to give whoever I'm referring to that full attention. I think that's important. And that even starts with, if I go into a meeting with our exec team, we have our conference room here at our office here. I'll leave my cell phone and a thing, because I don't need no distraction. So our conference room almost becomes like our training room, or where we're meeting, almost becomes like a CIA kind of black hole. Everybody leaves the phones out in their room. You don't need it in here. So no phones allowed in here, because we don't need distraction. We need to focus.
Right. It's so easily, we're as visionaries and entrepreneurs, we're so easily distracted. But anyway, I know we've been talking for a while, so I want to know, where can people find you? If they listen to this and say, hey, I'd love to chat with Mike, or send him a quick email or something.
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Lowry. Not as active as I once was on there. Trying to get better at that as I continue to work on the business, because I've made great relations. That's how we got connected.
Yep. So it's
LinkedIn.
Mike Lowry. So
yep,
Lowry. Okay.
And then our website, we have two websites right now, technically. We have
okay.
signal88.com, And then if you go to, there's a location on there, and then there's a contact on there for, I'm under Tulsa. I think I'm on Little Rock also, but Tulsa has a bunch about me and actually has our phone number on there too.
Okay.
And new coming out, the website's out now, but we're transitioning to the new brand at like literally this month. It's going to be teamsignal.com.
Okay, that's great. Awesome. Well, Mike, I want to thank you. I know we spent like a good hour. Normally it's less, but there's just so much good conversation here. I want to thank the people who are listening. I want to encourage everyone if they like it, to share it. If you tell somebody, if you heard something that you like, obviously promote us. Again, Mike, I want to thank you. And until next time, this has been another episode of Leaders Who Scale. And that wraps up another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at leaderswhoscale.com. Leaders Who Scale is sponsored by Siegel Solutions, providing world-class services and cutting-edge tools that help businesses grow and succeed.